Today on Talking EdTech, we take a look at Brightbytes, a data platform that could help you assess your return on investment and gather stakeholder and community feedback for use in improving your school system.
Thanks everyone for joining us. We're excited to do this webinar here today. We have both Glen and Michelle from Brightbytes. They are our Brightbytes reps here, and we're going to dive into the teaching and learning survey as well as the modern learning solution, which are two platforms that everyone has access to currently, being a member LEA from IU23. So without further delay here, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to both Glen and Michelle, and they can take over sharing their screen and giving us a good demo of both products.
Thanks, Shane. Appreciate the opportunity to chat with everybody, and just as always, appreciate the partnership with IU23. Just want to make sure, am I sharing my screen that I want to share, or am I not? I feel like I might be sharing the wrong one.
Yep, we can see it.
You're good.
Okay, it's not my email though, right? That's the important thing. Yeah, so excited to share and chat with everybody. We've been working with IU23 for about the last 7 or 8 years now, so it's been a really great partnership over that time. My name is Glen Zolman. I'm the Vice President of Customer Success for Brightbytes. I used to be a math teacher, spent 12 years teaching middle school, high school math. Have been doing this work supporting districts, supporting service agencies, supporting state departments of education around the use of instructional software, and now around the use of a data analytics tool for the last 13 years. I'm just really passionate about helping school districts and all educators, all the key stakeholders really optimize the use of technology and the use of data to really drive and improve instruction. I live out in the Pittsburgh area, and have been out here for a little over 9 years now. And yeah, I'm really excited to chat with you. So I'll let my colleague Michelle introduce herself.
Thanks guys for having us today. We really appreciate the time that you're taking to sit through this webinar. I know that the end of the year is wrapping up, and so again, thank you for joining us. Like Glen said, my name is Michelle. I was a middle school math teacher and instructional coach for over 15 years. There's something special about middle school students that I absolutely love, and it was really hard to make the transition out of a classroom and into leadership on the campus. But then after that, in 2012, I had an opportunity to start impacting student outcomes at a bigger level, at a state level, by helping implement some state purchased software that they were using here in Texas. And so I jumped ship in Austin ISD to actually work with Glen for Think Through Math a while back. And so since then, I've been helping districts across the country implement large scale software implementations to help change student outcomes. And I've loved every minute of it. I've been with Brightbytes for almost 1.5 years now, and working with the data analysis piece of it. It's been really fun, and I look forward to working with PA as well. Oh, and I got one up on Glen. He might live there for 9 years, but I was born and raised in Southwestern Pennsylvania. So I am a Pennsylvanian, if that is even a word.
If it's not a word, we'll make it a word, Michelle. And that's, yeah, definitely. I'm actually an Idahoan, which is a word you have to say very carefully. So let's talk about what Brightbytes does. A lot of you might be familiar with Brightbytes. You might have used Brightbytes over the last 6 or 7, 8 years. But obviously a lot has changed during that time. Brightbytes has really evolved in a lot of ways. And we have a wide variety of different solutions for districts to take advantage of. And today we're going to cover those solutions. Going to focus primarily on just kind of a recapture, a review of the technology and learning solution, which is a survey solution that many of you might be familiar with. And also talk to you about 2 new solutions, in particular our modern learning survey, sort of like the next evolution of technology and learning. And then also our EdTech Impact solution. But really the idea is that, we need to be leveraging our data across a wide variety of areas, whether it's SEL and climate culture data that we get from a variety of places, looking at how students are doing on benchmark and some of the assessments, looking at their access to technology both at home and at school, and the different kinds of ways that technology is being used to drive instruction. Obviously, during this last year, there was a pretty massive switch to, we suddenly had to do everything virtually. And that was a huge change. And a lot of districts were really prepared for how to do that because they've been practicing and kind of gathering and using this data for a long time. And a lot of districts were really totally unprepared to do that. They just really hadn't ever, done the deep work to get ready for that. And then a bunch were kind of caught in the middle. Most were sort of, excuse me, somewhere in the middle of that, and had some great successes and some great challenges across that. But if we can take all of this data that we've got, and we can take all of the experience that we've had from the last year, we can really start to look forward to what we want to do next. Next year being a year that we all kind of hope will be, far more normal than the past couple of years have been. And how are we going to really leverage and really drive instruction, drive student success, help identify students that have kind of maybe fallen through some gaps in the last year. Anyway, a lot to do, a lot to kind of pick up and drive with, but we've learned so much, and there's so much positive momentum, I think, around the way which we can interact with students and the way that we can leverage technology to really create rich, robust learning experiences for our students. And we want to leverage that and use that as a springboard going forward. And that's one of the really important things to Brightbytes, is to figure out how can you do that. So one of the ways is our traditional technology and learning survey tool. So this might look familiar to you, but the CASE framework, classroom access skills environment, are the 4 big categories. So this is a survey tool. We survey students in grades 3 through 12. Survey all of your K-12 teachers, can survey all of your K-12 parents as well. The survey takes about between 10 and 20 minutes to do, depending on kind of the different groups. Teacher survey is a little bit longer, more like 15 to 20. For most students, it's about a 10-minute survey to do. For the younger students, the 3rd graders especially, it might be more like 15, just because typically you'll have teachers kind of walk them through the survey, help explain some concepts, things like that. So those 4 categories, though, classroom, we really dig into the 4 C's, as well as the 5th C of digital citizenship, and the use of technology for assessment and the use of assistive technology. So we really ask a lot of questions around those components. Access looks at both access at school and at home. So a lot of questions just about, like, do you have a device? Can you take it home? When you're at home, how do you access the internet? Things like that. Skills in this survey gets into foundational things. So really, can you connect to Wi-Fi? Can you work with a spreadsheet? Are you able to find resources online? Are you able to create and post and share content? Across those ideas of foundational skills, online skills, multimedia skills. The environment really gets into 3 Ps: policies, procedures, and practices at your school. So, what's the day-to-day in terms of how you interact with technology? Do you discuss it? Do you have meetings around it? Are you evaluating the use of technology? Are you supported with technology? What kind of professional learning do you do with technology? What have you gotten? What do you want to get? And then what are your overall beliefs around the use of technology for instruction? Do you think it's something that's valuable? It's been a really interesting category to talk to about, recently, especially like on the parent side of the survey. A lot of parents have felt pretty frustrated around the use of technology, but a lot have really found it to be like, wow, I never knew you could do these things with it. So a lot of good and bad on that particular topic. So the other tool then that we have is called the Modern Learning Survey. And I'm going to actually jump out of this, and I'll show you the technology learning one, and then we'll come back and talk about modern learning. So technology learning, you guys might recognize a platform that looks like this. So once you've taken this survey, we compile that all for you into this dashboard. And we've really tried to make data engaging and inviting and easy to understand. So right from the top, you can see we've got this nice color coding scale here. Gray means that you're kind of at the beginning stages. Blue means that you're doing an amazing job. And there's all that kind of scale in between. Each of these major domains, classroom, access, skills, and environment, you can drill into further. So if I wanted to learn more about kind of the specifics of what's happening in the classroom environment, I can do that. I can see trends, see how those have sort of changed and shifted over time. So I can look at the overall kind of score. I can also look at, the four kind of categories together. I can even look at the specific success indicators. These are the sort of components that make up classrooms. So I've got teacher use of the 4 Cs, student use of the 4 Cs, assessments, digital citizenship, and so on and so forth. So lots of ways to be able to kind of look at that data, break it down. And then within any of these categories, I can go in, I can drill further. I'm going to go into teacher communication. It's one of my favorite categories to kind of look at. I think that one of the things that we do the most with online technology is the ability to be able to get feedback from others and provide feedback to others. That ability to be able to kind of get someone to look at what I've done, give me their perspective, is an amazing kind of aspect of the use of technology, especially with the ability to connect with outside experts and be able to say, hey, you're someone who's written a book. Can you give me some feedback on this story that I'm writing? And there's all kinds of great opportunities for things like that. But so here are all the data points that kind of fit into that category there. For any one of those data points, I can look at a comparison with the past and sort of see how that's shifted over time. And you can see, that has made quite a bit of progress over time. These are all of the districts in IU23 that have used the survey that are making up this data right here. I can see the comparison of teacher responses to student responses and see if there's any real differences there. I can also look at a school by school comparison. So I won't do this here because there's a lot of schools there. I don't want to point out any individual schools, but I can compare all schools, or I can go and I can select any of the schools that happen to be in there and have a side-by-side comparison of all of those. I also can look at a comparison across all of Pennsylvania. We're in many, many school districts throughout Pennsylvania. We've got partnerships with IU23, 21, 15, 3, and 10. So a lot of districts are using our tool. Then you can also see a comparison with the entire country, just to give you some context for kind of how you sit compared to other folks. As you can see, I can save this chart as a PNG file. It allows me to easily kind of include it in other documents. I actually can share this. It allows me to sort of directly from the platform email this chart out to other people and share that information with them. And then every one of these data points has the ability to point you to a set of insights. These are really strategies that we've curated over time. So if I dig into that, I see that I've really got kind of like 3 different levels of strategies here. I've got quick wins. These are things that you can really go out and start to do today and really put in place tomorrow. They're much more simpler, quick wins, light lift, easy things to do. But if you really wanted to work on getting students to get feedback from others in the classroom, these are going to be some great suggestions to dig into. Game changers are larger projects. These are things that are going to take more work to get going. You might not be fully ready to engage in some of these things, but going through these game changers, you might identify some things that you really want to work towards over time, and maybe you might want to launch, next fall or even in the spring. And then innovators are people that we've partnered with that have said that they're willing to. They've done a lot of this work and they're willing to share their stories with others. So here you can connect with Pete on Twitter and say, hey, Pete, I'm looking to do this. I saw in Brightbytes that you were kind of, had some experience. What have you got for me? And Pete will be happy to kind of work with you on that. So again, for all of these different categories, you're easily able to drill down into the data and really get more information and track those trends over time. And that's where kind of the power of this comes from, is your ability to be able to identify something that you want to work on, that you want to get better at, pull data points from across the 4 categories. That idea about getting feedback from others really involves you've got to have some really solid digital citizenship practices and understanding in place. You would want teachers and students both to be really comfortable with, communicating with others online, with writing online, with finding information online. Those data points can be found in the skills category. You'd also want to make sure that your teachers were regularly talking about technology as a part of their team and department meetings. That can be found here in the environment category. So really you take the data from across those different domains, and you pull together kind of a cohesive picture of the kinds of things that you want to be able to track and look at, really as just sort of key performance indicators as you're working to improve your instructional technology programs at your district. Um, Along with this dashboard, we also have a whole set of reports that are available to you. So these reports contain these really nice little infographics on them. So each one has a sort of a summary of what you're doing. And at the bottom, there are these cool infographics. And these take data points from across the platform in a variety of ways. So, for this organization, again, this is all of the districts in IU 23. So it's kind of a wide ranging thing. You can see that, hey, they've got some really great skills. They really believe technology is going to be strong. But there's some gaps in digital citizenship. And incidentally, this data point would indicate that they had all basically said that they were very confident in their knowledge of digital citizenship across 4 or 5 separate topics. So, while many people feel like they're very comfortable across 1 or 2 topics, not many feel like they're very comfortable across all of them. So this would be an indication that, hey, we probably should do some work on that area. This actually has been a really interesting data point to talk to districts about is, with this massive influx of technology over the last year, people purchasing tons of devices, obviously using things like video chat and web applications far, far more. Our students have been put in, the situation of really doing a lot of great things with technology, but there has not been, or at least not in the discussions that we've had, sort of a corresponding increase in the work to make sure that their understanding of online safety, their understanding of how to legally use online content, cyberbullying, those kind of things really hasn't kept up with that. That's just sort of our experience talking to lots of districts across the country. And in fact, our team was talking about this just earlier today, that seems to be kind of a trend that we're seeing. And so one of the other things that you get with the use of Brightbytes is you get connected to someone like Michelle. And Michelle works with districts all over the country. She has these conversations all of the time, and she can really help to give you some input and some thought leadership, not only on what are other people doing, but what kind of conversations that they're having, as well as how to use the data. So our whole team has gone through a course in essentially data leadership and data coaching. So we've got some great strategies and protocols that we can share with you for how to make the most of your data, how to approach data, and how to really build data literacy within your whole district. So it's not just about here's the tool, go have fun with it. For Brightbytes, it really is a partnership that we want to create with your district to help you make the best use of the data possible. And I know the folks at IU 23 feel the same way, where they are really, really excited about being able to leverage and use this data to better understand, the things that districts are having great success with, also understand the areas where they might be able to provide some resources and some help and some guidance to help you, do the work that needs to get done to really move forward, past what has been a really difficult last year. So this is the technology and learning tool, which again, a lot of you probably are familiar with. I'm going to jump over to talk about the modern learning solution or modern learning survey. For those of you that are soccer fans, it is the MLS, but it is not the soccer league here in America. So, so the framework for the MLS is a little bit different, similar but different. We've taken the approach of we really wanted to understand the full learning environment, regardless of where it existed. So, over the last year, obviously, students have been learning from home far more. They've been learning in these hybrid models. A lot of them are back in school 4 or 5 days a week now. But even if you're 5 days a week face-to-face with a teacher, there still are lots of aspects of learning that take place when you're not in the 4 walls of that classroom. So we really are working to understand these different elements regardless of where a student is. So we do ask questions around access. We've changed the classroom concept to just instruction. So we want to know what tools are being used, how are teachers and students collaborating, how are building leadership in students, or sorry, teachers collaborating, how are we communicating to parents, things like that. We have a whole new category around social emotional learning. So we really have partnered with this SEL tool that's been available for a number of years. So like everything with Brightbytes, we don't just create stuff randomly ourselves. We always partner with lots of other people that are in this field that have tons of experience and research. For the Modern Learning Survey, we've partnered with ISTE, we've partnered with the University of Pennsylvania, with AIR, the American Institutes for Research, to build this out to make sure that we're really, on point with what we're asking and why we're asking it. So this SEL is a set of questions. It really is around student competencies, around self-management, self-awareness, emotion knowledge, and social awareness, as well as some digital citizenship topics on online safety that go into that SEL category. Some really great bits of information there just around, where you might be able to support your students in a larger kind of whole child sort of sense. We have a skills category. It really focuses on connectivity and finding content, teachers and students' ability to use technology to find, curate, share, create content are the biggest areas of that. The support category, again, how are we staying connected? How are we communicating? As well as some technical support. And then really some questions about, do I feel like I've got the backing I need from leadership? Are expectations clear? And then what kind of learning environment are we setting for kids? Are we really creating learning spaces both in school and at home that allow for students really to be productive? And then finally, professional development. This category really is very similar to what you'll see in tech and learning in terms of the questions around professional learning that teachers have gone through and what they want. The one big difference here is that the interest questions, the questions about what kind of PD do they want to get, have been really updated to a much more kind of current set of topics, whereas the tech and learning, they're still current, but they're a little bit broader. So we get a little more specific in the modern learning survey. So that's the framework for modern learning. Let me show you what it looks like. So I'm going to go to this screen over here, and let's talk a little about what it looks like. So modern learning really has two views to it. There's a view that we call the analytics view. That's this view right here. And I'm going to sort of bounce away from that for a second, and I'm going to go into more of the raw survey results view. So that's this one here. So one of the things we did with modern learning survey is that we give you access to the exact questions that were asked here. I can see the groups that those questions were asked of. And one of the things that you'll notice is that we have 4 separate groups, whereas in TNL, we just have students, teachers, and parents. Here we've added in this whole new separate survey specifically for what we call school leadership. And that might be building principals, assistant principals. It could also include department leaders, could include grade level team leaders. Basically anybody at a school that you feel is in a leadership position could take that school leadership survey. It really just gets into how we are communicating with and supporting our teachers, our parents, folks like that. So we have these 4 categories. For any of these categories, I can bump this open and I can see the specific results of those questions. So I can see how many people were responded. So here we had about 2,300 students respond. I can see the individual results. And one of the things that you'll notice with the modern learning survey is that it is much more streamlined survey than TNL. Again, I gave you the numbers for TNL, 10 to 15 for students, 15 to 20 for teachers. Parents is about 5 minutes. The modern learning survey is more like about 7 to 8 minutes for teachers, 5 to 7 minutes for students, and parents and school leadership are both under 5 minutes. So very much more streamlined survey. We've also, in doing that, we've had to kind of get really thoughtful about the questions we ask and how we ask them. So whereas in TNL, we ask a series of 4 or 5 questions about internet access from home, here we try to get down to the core of it. And it's really like, can you access the internet when you need it? And is it fast enough? Those are really the 2 things. And we've really combined those into one question here because the response choices they have, not sure if you guys can see these or not because it's kind of small, but they can say yes. They can say yes, but it's not very fast, or they can say no, or I don't know. And that yes, but not very fast is kind of this key little target audience that's really important to be able to kind of look at and understand and address. So, and I'll share a little bit more about that in just a minute. But so these are all of the different questions across the various categories. And again, you can pop any of these open to see the specific results, see how the questions were asked, and you've got all of that raw data right there, kind of at your fingertips. Also, if I pick a particular audience, as I'm able to download that survey, those responses right from the platform there, so I can get those results right away. So let's look at the data analytics side of things. These are all dashboards of charts. So we've taken that data and we have put them into a variety of charts. Some of the charts are a single data point like this one here, where it really kind of takes a look at that internet access question we were asking, or I was showing you before. Some of them are combinations of teacher and student responses, or even a variety of teacher and student responses put together, folded together. So you've got all of these great kind of charts that all tell a story and have some great impact in terms of what you might want to do to drive some work. And we've got about 12 different dashboards that you've got access to here. And all of them are centered around a guiding question. So maybe I want to know, how does school leadership influence technology use? Maybe I want to dig into, how do our kids that are 100% virtual, how are they responding to these questions versus the students that are maybe hybrid or in person? There's probably some big differences in those responses there. And so we have got dashboards that really try to answer those questions and group that data up around those topics. Additionally, all of these charts can be pinned to your own dashboard. So you can create your own dashboards that tell a different story. So if these dashboards don't tell a story that's meaningful to you, then you can kind of create your own. And one of the really cool things that I can do here is I can filter down to a variety of levels. I can filter down to individual schools. I can also filter by grade or ethnicity or gender. And in doing so, I'm able to sort of take different slices of this data, and when I pin it to the dashboard, those filters stick, meaning that I can take a chart like this and I can sort of slice and dice it lots of ways and see it really in kind of a cool side-by-side fashion. And I'm going to show you an example of that right now. So I've created this dashboard on student engagement, and really, if I tell you the story of this dashboard, I started off looking at that 2% we saw a second ago. And I said, I want to see how that kind of breaks out. So I filtered it down to the high school, the middle school, and the elementary school, and I pinned those 3 cards to this dashboard. And you can see the results are a pretty interesting story. One is there's a lot of students at the high school who say their home internet is not very fast. That's something I got to really kind of think about, because we're asking high school students to do a lot of things that might really tax that bandwidth. And if they're getting frustrated with that, that's not a good situation to be in. I also noticed that while the high school and middle school are 2% and 1%, the elementary school is 6%. That's a really different kind of view at the elementary school. 6% of kids who don't have access to internet at home, that's a big number. So I wanted to look at that then by grade level. So I took that elementary school and I broke it down into 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. And now I've got even a sort of a more interesting story around, the fact that those 3rd graders are the highest by far. And so I start to kind of peel back the layers of this, and I get better sense of, how I might want to respond to this, or if there's a need even to respond to this. So anyway, this is the Modern Learning Survey. It is a choice for all of you, for districts in IU23. You can use either TNL. So you might have used it before and you want to continue that view and you want to kind of keep doing that survey, or you could switch to the Modern Learning Survey. You've got the choice. You can do either one or the other. If you do decide to switch to the Modern Learning Survey, you won't lose any of your old data. It'll still be there. You'll still be able to go back and look at those old dashboards. We've got a nice crosswalk document that we'll provide with you that allows you to kind of see which data points in the Modern Learning Survey connect to data points back in TNL. So you'll be able to easily kind of make those connections that way. But either one of those is there for you to use, and at no cost whatsoever. It's all been provided as part of your membership in IU23.
Hey, Glenn, I've got a quick question for you. So there seems to be some overlap in the topics between TNL and MLS. But I'm assuming that you kind of talked about how the MLS has more streamlined questions, or the survey itself is more streamlined, a little bit quicker maybe to get through. Are there specific things that would help a district decide either we should be continue to focus on TNL, or maybe we want to make that jump?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that Michelle or I will do is, so I think if a district wants to get going with this or wants to have that conversation, it would be really just that. We'd want to have a sort of a discussion. If you're a district that really wants to focus in on some of the depth of, say, the classroom domain, and you want to get into some of those key elements, let me bounce back over to that. So if you've been highly focused, say, on something like we really want to better understand, how our students, what specific things are our students doing around using technology for critical thinking. And so I want to get into, and a couple of these questions exist in the Modern Learning Survey, but maybe I want to really get into this idea about research, and maybe identifying and solving authentic problems. Maybe those are two areas that are a critical focus for our district. So in TNL, you've got those specific kind of questions that we ask, but there's a whole kind of broader set of context around that also kind of gets filled out throughout TNL. Modern Learning Survey doesn't get into that much depth. So if you go into the instruction category here, let me bring that up to kind of show you a comparison. So no, we ask about this question about like taking measurements and doing experiments, collaborating online, creating things using technology. It's a little bit more at the higher level of that. And part of the reason is that, we've just found a lot of districts kind of struggle to get past that basic kind of level of technology use for those things. And the deeper level of things is not where their focus is. They just want to get people kind of doing the blocking and tackling, as that phrase kind of goes. So I think it really is a matter of where the district is at. We've also had some districts that, for a long time have really focused in on using those infographics, those little reports I showed you to communicate out to people. Those don't exist in the modeling survey yet. It'll be something that we're going to add on over time. But if those are something that you've really valued and want to use and want to continue to use, then that might be the better tool for you. But really, it just needs to be a conversation, and that's something. Again, we've got this crosswalk document that kind of goes through all the different categories and shows the two tools side by side in terms of kind of how they function. And then we can just have that discussion around what are you focused on, what's really important to you, and what really makes the most sense for you guys or what data set makes the most sense for you to collect. But both tools, I think, the discussions that I've had with districts around both tools have been immensely interesting, informative, and I think districts have gotten a lot of value out of both of them. And one of the interesting things, I've had a couple of districts that have really kind of waffled back and forth around which one to do. And one district actually intended to do the Modern Learning Survey, but they sent out the links to the wrong survey. And this is back at the very, very beginning when that was something that they actually could do. We've done some work to make sure that's not really a possible thing anymore. But my conversation with this district in the end, they started off, they were kind of unhappy that they had done the wrong survey. And by the end, they were so thrilled that they had done the wrong survey because the data that they got back was just so valuable for where they were at. So I think if we can have that conversation and really dig into your needs and what you want to focus on, we'll steer you down the path of choosing the right tool, and we'll also work with you to make sure you get the most out of it in the end. So for those of you that maybe aren't aware, both survey tools, are very, very easy to distribute and to manage. So there's a manage data page that you'll have, and each of the surveys essentially has links that you can distribute for each of the schools and the different types of surveys. They can be taken on a phone, tablet, computer, from school, from home, really any kind of device that's internet access, you can take this survey on. And then you can track how many responses you're getting across the different groups throughout the survey process. There's also a centralized link you can use. So if I use this link here, I'll just show you a quick example. I'm asked to respond in terms of who am I taking this questionnaire? Am I a student, staff, parents? And then from there, I get to select which school that I am, and then I'm taken to the right survey from there. So regardless of which tool you use. And this whole child is another survey tool that we have. That's not really a part of this conversation. If you use TNL or modern learning, this basic setup is all the same. Really easy to distribute, really easy to monitor. And then you get data back literally almost right away with both survey tools. So get your responses back very quickly. So that's really the two tools there that we wanted to show. There also is a third tool that I want to kind of dig into just briefly, and then we'll open it up for any questions people have. But we also have a tool called EdTech Impact. And some of you might have heard of this previously as a tool called Learning Outcomes that we had. So EdTech Impact is really the next iteration of that. Far more than just the fact that we ended up not liking the name Learning Outcomes and decided that we wanted to change the name. So this tool tracks the usage of web applications across any devices that you have. So in previous versions, we've really only been able to track devices on, or sorry, usage on Chromebooks or PCs. We can really track usage across any device environment that you might have. There's a variety of ways that we can do that. We could possibly use your web filter data to do that. We've done that with a couple of districts. We also have a set of agents that we can deploy, an extension on Chromebooks, and we've got agents that we can deploy for iPads and Windows devices as well. So we can track usage across any device. We do a integration with your SIS, pretty lightweight integration. We just need to know really basically, who are your students, so we can connect their usage to those students. We want to understand a little bit about their demographic kind of profile, so that we can allow you to do some slicing and dicing, so that when I come up here, I can view any of these different categories here and really start to get a good picture of who's using what, where some equity gaps might exist, things like that. We want to know what school they're in, so we can obviously make sure that we permission those students so that they're seen by the right people. And we also want to know what section they're in, what teachers they're attached to, so that we can allow you to filter down to the section level, but we can also allow teachers then to see just their students. So a lot of things that we want to get from that SIS integration, so that we can really tie all these bits and pieces together. So here I'm at the middle school now. Again, I've got a whole series of dashboards that I can go through and look at. This overview shows me how many active users we've got, active sessions, what app was the most used this week. I can go and look at all the apps that were used this week at my school. I can also pop this open and I can see for any specific app, I can look at how many students use that app altogether. So I'm going to go in for, like, say, I'll do Kahoot. That's fine. The problem being I'll be able to spell. So I can see I only have 2 students here that have been using Kahoot. I can see who they are. I can see that session duration. We do a lot of work to sessionize the usage data that a lot of other tools don't really do. So, we really give you I think the most accurate view in terms of what are your students' sessions actually like with that tool versus just did they log in and did they stay logged in for an amount of time. So, and then I also can drill down. Maybe I want to look here at Perry and I want to see, what does Perry's kind of overall profile look like? So this dashboard here has a lot of other data because we have a whole set of other tools that we offer that get into things like grades and discipline and attendance and things. But these bottom cards here, and I do apologize, I'm sure you guys all know what it's like when you've got a whole family that's using the internet all at the same time. I'm pretty sure my daughter's downstairs binge watching Stranger Things right now. But I can see for Perry, this one student, how many apps has he used this week? How many sessions, session time, and then what does that profile kind of look like? So as a teacher, I'm able to drill down and see all the students from my class. Teachers and building level administrators also have another tab over here on the left where they can create groups. So if I had a group of students that I had, say, asked to use Khan Academy, I'm a former math teacher, obviously, so I'm kind of picking on that one. I could actually create a group of students and filter the entire dashboard down to just that group of students and look at their usage across the platform. So really an amazing way to be able to kind of drill in and see that usage. A couple of other things that we allow folks to do that I think are pretty impactful, pun somewhat intended. I'm actually able to go in and, pardon me, I've got to enable this preview mode so I can show this. Apologize for that little back of the platform view there. But I can look at how much we're investing in apps and what does that profile look like. So I can put in contact information, and of course it doesn't show up here, but I can put in contract information and really see which app has the real highest cost based on active users. I can see what we're spending per active license. I can look at our total spending. There's a whole dashboard in here around that cost investment aspect of the platform. And then we also can integrate assessment data across any of your like benchmark interim assessments and connect that to student usage to really give you a sense of, for those students using those tools, what does it look like in terms of their performance on a variety of those interim benchmark assessments. So, here's an example of quizzes. It's being used by 143 students. There are 4 students that didn't use it. The students using it, you had about 45% of them hit their growth targets. The 4 that didn't use it, they all met their growth targets. Now, does that mean that quizzes is a bad tool? No, but it does give you some information. And this is all demo data, of course, so it's kind of random. But it does give you a lot of information to be able to drive some conversations around, hey, maybe quizzes isn't being used properly. And again, I haven't looked at the usage for quizzes in this example, but you could look and see if it's being used properly. Who's using it? How much are they using it? Are they putting kids on it for too long of a time, for too short of a time? All those different things that go into really making an app effective and making it really support educators. It's all stuff you can kind of dig into with EdTech Impact. So I will say, again, you've got access right now to use the technology and learning survey solution, the traditional one that's been used for a long time, or you could choose to use the modern learning solution. And those two are available right now. We could get you up and going in a couple of days on either one of those to use those tools. EdTech Impact does require a SIS integration. There is a cost for that. It's not a huge cost, but there is an integration fee for that. It's a one-time integration fee, and then after that, it would be paid for through the IU. And again, really it is using one of those different solutions. And I think right now, what probably makes the most sense, or what would be the best direction, is to think about, does the modern learning survey or does TNL, the technology learning survey, do one of those provide some really great data for you to drive your work through the end of this year and looking forward into next year? What are the kind of key things that you want to work on? What do you want to focus on? What are the initiatives that you want to drive towards in your district? And what might you want to do to make that kind of happen here in the next few weeks? But so that's kind of the story. Again, those 3 solutions are all kind of options for you: modern learning, TNL, the 2 survey solutions, EdTech Impact is that app tracking piece of our platform. Brandon, Shane, Elena, anything else that you want to add in the conversation? Any questions that have come up or things that people have asked? I've not been paying attention to the chat box, so I'm not quite sure if things have come up or not.
Nothing in the chat for us right now, Glenn.
No, thank you so much for going over all of this. This is fantastic. We really appreciate the detailed review. And what I was going to say for all the attendees, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the Q&A. You can add them in the chat, or if you want to use the raise hand feature, we can go ahead and unmute you to ask a question. So why don't we pause for just a couple minutes and see if there are any questions that come through.
I know Elena put up my my contact information. My email is really easy. It's Glen, Glen, @brightbytes.net. Michelle is msamford@brightbytes.net. So we're both happy to help you out. I know Elena also posted the link to my calendar. So it's just a scheduling link. So feel free, if you wanted to set up some time, to click on that, find some time to chat, and we'll go through these in more detail with any districts that want to talk more about it.
Glenn, I have a kind of a low-level question about the EdTech Impact Guide.
Yeah.
And again, this is coming at more from like what a curricular person might not understand about how you're getting that data. So I know the answer to this, but I want to make sure it's on a recording. How would the data they're getting through EdTech Impact be different than, say, using a single sign-on solution that maybe is tracking through a sign-in portal?
yeah, there's definitely going to be some things that might be similar. Um, Again, we do a lot to track not just did they log in, how long were they logged in, but we look at doing what we call sessionizing data. That's sort of one of the first things. So if a student kind of remains idle for a period of time where they really shouldn't, if there's not some amount of clicks or scrolls or things like that, I mean, whenever you're using any app, there's just an immense amount of data that's being transmitted. And so we want to look at kind of the sessions to give you a really accurate sense of this session duration piece. As a former math teacher, and I used to work for a math software company, you know, getting districts to use your solution for kind of that optimum ideal amount of time was one of the biggest struggles that we had, and helping districts to understand what that was one of the biggest the most important elements of success overall. So there's that piece. And again, many of those you know, single sign-on kind of tools or even some web filters will provide back some of that. And I'm not going to judge the quality of that. I just know that we do a lot to make sure that that's really accurate and actionable information. The other piece is the investment piece. So obviously I wasn't able to show that to you in really great detail because it just had a lot of data unavailable dollar signs there, but connecting that usage to investment, I know some of those tools have some functionality around that as well. But the real thing that I don't think anybody else really is doing is that ability to be able to integrate assessments into this picture and give you that side-by-side view of you know, are the tools that we're using having the impact that you want? And I think there's a really great story there about, you know, if I'm you know, really a big believer in Khan Academy, and again, not many folks in this district use Khan Academy, so it's kind of a bad example, but a lot of folks across the country do, and they will, you know, give Khan Academy, or they'll encourage a group of students to use Khan Academy, and they have a specific intent in mind. Maybe that's remediation, maybe it's to help kids that are already kind of like, you know, out there move forward quickly. So I can do a number of things. I can see, are they using it in a way that makes sense? In this example, you know, they're using it basically about once every 3 weeks or once every other week, and they're only using it for about 16 minutes at a time. And that's not going to get you very far with using Khan Academy. So if I'm the you know, instructional coordinator for this district, or if I'm the math coordinator, or if I'm just really focused on this, I'm going to say, hey, we want to use Khan Academy, but one, no one's using it. Two, the ones that are using it are not using it appropriately. Let's refocus and recenter on that. But if I did have you know, if I did have a lot of people using it and they were using it in the right way, you know, so quizzes is a good example of, you have a lot of people using it. They're using it about, you know, maybe once or twice a week. 12 minutes for a quizzing kind of application feels about right time-wise. So I can then go in and I can say, you know, is there a connection between using quizzes and seeing positive outcomes on you know, assessments? And you know, what you may find is that, wow, there's a really strong correlation in this school with that, but not at this school, or with these teachers, but not these teachers. And it allows you to have a conversation and maybe go in and say, hey, how are you using quizzes? Oh, wow, you're doing this and that and that. That's amazing. We should do that everywhere because we're seeing great success. Or you can go in there and you can kind of say, oh, you know what, we might want to think about a better way to kind of approach this or do this. And again, not in a judgmental kind of critical way, but just how do we really maximize these tools that we're using? You know, a lot of districts that I've worked with have 15, 20 math applications that they're using. You know, do we need all 15 or 20 of those? Can we scale that down? Can we find the ones that are the most effective and use those? So those are the kind of conversations I think tying usage and the investment and the you know, progress on those assessment things together really allows districts to do in a way that that no other tool that I'm aware of really allows them to do. It's a
Thank you.
long answer to that question. I apologize
So,
for that.
no, it's good. I think I like the way you tie it not just to money, you tie it to the classroom, you tie it to practice, and I think that's mainly what I wanted you to call
Yeah.
out, is the fact that yes, the return on investment, there are other things that promise that, but this goes one step farther in my mind by actually guiding that conversation, as you said. And ultimately, that, you know, these things we're buying, these things we're implementing are supposed to have an impact on learning. and how are we quantifying that? So I appreciate it.
Yeah. And it's not we spend a lot of time thinking about on my team, like, how do we guide these conversations? Because it's not as simple as saying, oh, you're using that tool, kids aren't doing well, get rid of that tool.
Right.
It's much more nuanced than that. And even if it's like, hey, they're using that tool, they're having great success, everyone should use that tool, that isn't the approach either. It's, you got to, like, sort of figure out the magic that makes it kind of work. And sometimes it's an amazing teacher taking a tool that is good or average or even terrible and doing amazing things with it that you can't really replicate. Sometimes it's a great tool and a great teacher together doing amazing things, and that you can replicate. You can make that happen all day, every day. So I think it allows you to have more guided conversations and a more focused approach to be able to figure out kind of what is and what isn't working, and then do more of what is working and do less of what isn't working. And I think that's a recipe for success. I will also point out, I was showing this dashboard before. These were all the data points that were from Modern Learning. Because Modern Learning and EdTech Impact both live on our newer platform, you can also pin any of the other data points from any other tools there. So these are actually data points from EdTech Impact that I've also pinned to this dashboard. And you can sort of see it begins to tell, again, another story. I don't know why we've got 86 apps being used by our third graders, but we do. That's something I want to look into, and then I can go in and sort of see the detail around performance for my third, fourth, and fifth graders. Anyway, so if districts were at some point in time to get both of those tools, these dashboards become really powerful ways to kind of compile a story around what's happening in the district. So.
All right, thank you. And it looks like we don't have any other questions in the Q&A or the chat here. So I believe there are no other questions. Then we just want to say, hey, thanks to Glenn and Michelle for joining us today and going through all of these different solutions that are available to all of our MCIU districts. I think this is fantastic. Making data-informed decisions is what we're trying to promote. I think having Brandon on board here to help us out to connect that to the curriculum pieces is a phenomenal way to really show the value of what you can actually do with this type of information. So Elena has been putting in your contact info, Glenn, in the chat. So people are interested, they can reach out to schedule a time with you to get up and running. And I think aside from that, that's all we have for today. So thanks for everyone for joining us, and we hope to see everyone soon then.